The movie is Him, which was written by Skip Bronkie, Zack Akers, and Justin Tipping, and directed by Justin Tipping. The film follows Cameron Cade, a rising college quarterback who suffers a potentially career-ending injury after being violently attacked by a masked individual. When all seems lost, Cameron receives a lifeline from his childhood hero, legendary quarterback Isaiah White, who offers to train him at his isolated compound to prep him for a career in the pros. However, as the training accelerates and intensifies, Isaiah's charisma turns into something darker, sending Cameron down a disorienting rabbit hole that may cost him more than he ever bargained for. The concept of a sports horror movie was such an awesome idea to me. This is the type of movie pitch that studio heads will buy in the room because it's just that good that it's almost guaranteed to be a hit. I was so hyped for this movie because there's never really been a movie that successfully fused horror and sports, and because the phenomenal trailer was one of the best I've seen in recent memory, and because I foolishly put a lot of stock into the fact that this was produced by Jordan Peele, who is obviously one of our generation's greatest voices in horror, which is exactly why this movie was so disappointing to me. I was fully bought in immediately after I heard about it, and my anticipation only kept growing with every piece of the marketing campaign. I think that's a big part of why so many people feel so negatively about this film, is because we all had really high expectations for it. And while yes, I don't think that's necessarily a fault of the film, I do think that it more than underdelivered on those expectations, and honestly, it felt like it didn't really even come close. That being said, the movie did have a few things that it did really well. Visually, this movie was gorgeous. It looked amazing with a number of captivating, creative practical sets that featured gorgeous lighting and that really captured your attention with how aesthetically pleasing they were. Honestly, as I was watching, I just kept thinking how cool this movie would be as a long form music video that accompanied an album. Like, it would pair seamlessly with the right music because it just had such creative and bold visuals that were so well done. The soundtrack of the film was entirely bangers. There wasn't a bad song that played during the film. I don't necessarily think that all the songs were used all that effectively, but nevertheless, I loved all of the music that was featured in the film. The acting was another very strong point to the movie. Marlon Wayans and Tyriq Withers both gave incredible performances that felt raw and authentic to their characters. They both acted their asses off, and honestly, it felt like they did the best they possibly could with the script that they were given. It was also a truly original concept that I think had a ton of potential. I can't really think of another sports horror movie. Honestly, the scariest sports movie that I can think of is probably The Blind Side, and that's just because Leanne Tui is a horrible person who took advantage of Michael Orr financially. This movie had such a unique, exciting idea that I honestly was so surprised it hadn't really been done before. And I commend the filmmakers for trying to bring something original like this to life. Sports are such a part of our culture, and a sports horror movie offers so many different interesting paths to go down. Sadly, that's about where the positives end for me. Easily my biggest issue with the film is the convoluted, messy plot that was ultimately devoid of any real substance and that made the majority of the film feel actually kind of boring. The movie created a lot of different threads that it just never really tied back in later. And it kind of moved on from one thing to the next with very little thought to the larger themes and ideas that it touched on in the first place. The metaphors had virtually no depth to them, and they were incredibly on the nose. And it's frustrating because I think the movie had a real opportunity to provide thought provoking commentary on the often unhealthy dynamic between fans and athletes, the arduous, often unforgiving journey of the modern athlete, or the tragic potential health consequences of the incredibly violent sport of American football. And it felt like it started to tread down some of those paths. But instead of diving deeper to uncover something insightful, it never really explored any of those ideas outside of the painfully obvious. I also think they should have leaned in much harder on the horror component. It didn't really deliver on scares in the way that I thought it would. And honestly, it would have been so much better if it were at least terrifying audiences. A movie that scares the hell out of you doesn't necessarily have to have this deep, thought provoking plot because it still makes you feel something. And I unfortunately didn't feel much at all watching this. It looked tremendously beautiful, but it just kind of felt vapid and hollow. While I felt that the poor writing was ultimately the downfall of this movie, It flourished when it came to the stunning, imaginative, and impressive visuals, as well as the extremely sensational acting performances delivered by Marlon Wayans and Tyriq Withers. Even though I was let down by this movie, you might not be. So I encourage you to go to the theater, check it out for yourself, and see what you think. So go watch Him. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, please like the video, add a comment letting me know what you thought of this movie, or what movie you think I should review next. I put out a movie review each week, so subscribe to stay tuned. Thanks, y'all.